welcome back to Healthy Little Moments. I know it's been a minute since our last episode, and we're so excited to be back. We've been working on some amazing things behind the scenes, especially brand partnerships. One of them is with Almond Cow, which is my favorite thing in the kitchen. It lets you make your own plant-based milk at home in under a minute. And since we're going to be talking about money today, I do want to call out that this little gadget has saved my family over $500 on our grocery bill just this year so far. If you want to learn a little bit more, I'm going to put some notes and a discount code in the show notes below. But today we're going to be jumping into a topic that so many of you have asked about, and that's how to live within your means. And I know it sounds so simple, and I feel like that's a phrase and tagline that gets thrown around a lot. And we're going to talk about that because this touches every part of your life: stress, budgeting, your relationships, long-term goals. Money is really the cornerstone of all of that. So today I brought back my very dear friend, John. You heard him on one of our latest episodes, Mastering the Basics of Financial Wellness. That is available. That's the previous episode. So wherever you're streaming this, you can listen to it there. The feedback, John, was amazing, as you know. So today we're going to build on some of that. And John is a very dear friend of mine. He is someone I respect as a human, as the father and husband that he is. And he also has had such an impressive career. He was able to budget in a way where he could retire early, and that's supporting a family of 5. His wife was a stay-at-home mom, and they had 3 wonderful kids, and he supported this family and retired early. So I think that is just really incredible. But before we jump into this episode, I legally have to read this next sentence. Here we go really quickly. This episode is not financial or legal advice. This is based on our own experience working in this field and what we've seen help real people. Everyone's situation is different, so do your own research. Talk to a professional who knows your personal details. Okay, that's the legal disclaimer. And really important, I just want to take one quick minute to also acknowledge that we know the economy is really difficult right now and money feels tighter for everybody. Costs are up, but that's why we're coming to you with this topic, because we think this is more important than ever. Like John said, this could change, the content could literally change someone's life.
Correct.
So John, thank you for being here. Before we get into talking about budgets and numbers, which, by the way, is my favorite part, because I love that on these podcasts, we give our audience actionable items, right? Something that they could take away. And I am working on a reference PDF for you that you can download. So that's going to be in the show notes. But I just want to take a moment to zoom out. You've helped a lot of people with their finances. So what do you think they think a better life means? So help us frame living within your means.
Excellent. Well, first of all, thank you for all those kind words, Dorota. I really appreciate it. And I'm honored to be a repeat guest on your podcast. I had a great time last time. I hope your viewers took something away from it, and it's going to help them with their finances going forward. And it's catered towards people just starting out in the workforce to retired people. You could take a little bit of each, and hopefully it'll help someone. So again, I want to say how honored I am to be here. As far as what the topic that we're going to speak about today, living within your means, a lot of people in this country just are spenders. I mean, Americans are known to be spenders, and they carry a lot of debt. It's just really understanding what you earn and how much you're spending. But the thing is, it's not as simple as that. I mean, the topic for that we're going to cover today, I hope that you take away from it what we're going to give you step by step. So the first thing that I want to touch upon is it's a mindset. Living within your means is a mindset. It's not just like, oh, what do I do? How am I going to do this? It's really, you have to really work a little bit towards actually living within your means. And once we define it, when Dorota and I define it, you're going to have a better understanding, hopefully at the end of this podcast.
That's awesome. Thank you, John. And you touched on something because you said it's a mindset. And I really want to lean into that because that mindset, a lot of that, we have to understand where our starting point is. And
Correct.
what I mean by that is a lot of our spending habits come from our beliefs about money. And those beliefs started long before adulthood. So for me, I grew up as a poor immigrant. I used to be embarrassed saying that, but now I'm proud of that because that shaped a lot of who I am today. For a long time, the way I grew up made me afraid of spending on myself. I was so focused on building wealth and security that I kind of lost that balance. And then on the flip side, like you said, in America, I see so many people overspend, or maybe they just got a job and they're like, oh my gosh, I have my first paycheck. I'm so excited to go on a shopping spree. And then that can be problematic. So becoming aware of that is one of those first steps. And we could do a whole podcast about mindset and financial trauma and all of that. But I just wanted to plant that seed before we get started so that you, viewer, while you're listening, can kind of take a moment to think about that.
I think one of the that we want to do today is number one, we want to educate our viewers on what this means. We want to help them get to the next level. And hopefully that's going to create a better life with less stress. But when you think about what you just mentioned about generations, right? Most of our parents want us, their children to have a better life than theirs. But to like you and I discussed in the past, what does better life mean? Does it mean that you're going to have one car or two cars per person? Does it mean you're going to have this huge house every, I'm going to simplify this one, but this one's like a new phone every year because, you have to keep up with the Joneses, which was a term we used last podcast. And,
Yes.
you're constantly taking out or going out. I don't know. I don't think my mom and dad really were thinking along those lines. I think when they talked about a better life, it wasn't about more stuff like we've discussed. I think what our parents wanted was to be comfortable. They wanted us to be secure. They wanted us to have like safety, less stress because they didn't have a lot and they had to manage with what little they had. So what this is going to hopefully help is the fact of what we can do with whatever money we're making and make our lives less stressful. I think when you think about like the heart of this, it's spending less than what you make. But there are rules with that too. So we'll get into that later. But that's pretty much the foundation of what we're going to try to accomplish today.
So you just defined it for us, which I think is exactly where I wanted to start. We're so aligned, John. So let's talk about that definition. It's really important. It's not just a tagline, and it's not the same for everybody,
That's right.
right? So can we talk about that a little bit?
Okay. So, when you think about where you're starting, you started out on a new job and you're making X. A lot of us are not sitting there and like looking at this paycheck that you're getting, right? So that's the first thing, it depends on your income, right? It depends on where you're living because the cost of living could be different where you are and where I am. So, right? We're in two different states, right? There could be a huge difference in taxes and cost of living. That's important. You have to look at the family size. Are you single? Are you just recently married? Do you have children? So all these components are going to make a difference in how you're going to live within your means. And you can't do everything, but you can make these little steps. Step by step is going to help you in the long term. Right now, we're just going to start at, let's say, where we are, and what we've done growing up and how living within our means helped us get to where we are today. Instead of just qualifying what we are, like depend on income, family size, cost of living and so forth. We also have to look at what we're spending. So you really got to take a look with almost like a microscope on look at your income, look at your spending, and then we could start talking about how we're going to fine tune living within your means.
That's really important as a starting start. Building on top of that, let's talk about the benefits and why this matters so much. I love the famous quote, start with the end in mind, focusing on your goals. So let's talk about that a little bit and some of the benefits of going through this process and living within your means, because it's not always easy.
Right. And some people, like to your point, don't even know where to start. Right. And this is going to give them some clarity. They feel it's like overwhelming. And what does overwhelming do to individuals? It creates stress, correct? We
Yes.
we as a society have enough stress and we can go through all that. One of the goals that you and I want to accomplish today is how can we give the public or the viewers less stress? If we could give them a playbook of, let's say, step A, step B, step C, hopefully we're going to help them get to that less stressful. And I'm going to give you some examples. Um, if you have a lot of debt, and that will quantify the type of debt, that's for later. But right now, if you have a lot of debt, some people just they have trouble sleeping, at
Oh, yeah.
night, right? They're thinking, "Oh, I don't want to lose my job, or I got to get a better job, or my spouse has to help. I got to do a side hustle." But that in itself is really, really hard on an individual because then it starts to impact your relationship with not only your spouse or your friends or your children. If you want the answer here and you want to reduce just the stress by listening to us today, that's going to make your life so much better. Yes, and I've used the term sacrifice in the last thing. There's going to require some sacrifice. There's going to require education. There's going to require what you're going to learn things, and you're going to have to be disciplined. I use that all the time. Whatever we're talking about with financial literacy, those things keep coming up. I think the other thing is, do you want a path to financial freedom? And what does that mean? You just don't want to have this constant weight on your shoulder of, oh God, what am I going to do? How am I going to pay these bills? So it's really important to take whatever little steps we're going to give you, whether it's spending more intentionally versus just whenever you want and you don't care, using your credit card and not paying attention to your debt. What's the worst debt? What are better debt to have? And I think you're pretty good at this as far as guiding me to help these guys out. So whenever you're ready, just say go and we'll get right to it. We'll get to the guts of this.
Let's do it. I think that's a perfect time. So, how does somebody start?
How do they start? Okay, well, I think we talk about this once. I read this article regarding budgeting or regarding living within your means, and I think they talked about something called the three P's. And if I recall, the three P's were like your paycheck, okay, prioritize and plan. So we'll get into those three right now. So when you say paycheck, we talked about this earlier. You get your first paycheck now. It could be a physical check or it could be a digital check. The first step you should look at is, okay, I was promised that I was going to make $75,000 a year in salary, but now I look at my paycheck and I see that there's taxes. Oh, taxes. First time I'm paying taxes. Okay. So that's going to lower it. And then the second thing is, well, Social Security. Yeah, you're putting into Social Security, you're probably putting into Medicare. And you look at all these line items. You look at federal taxes, you look at state taxes, local taxes, and it's like, wow, I'm really not making $75,000, right? So I think that's the starting point. What is your bottom line number after all those minuses from your paycheck? And that might be, we're just going to use fake numbers here just to make it easier. So you said you were going to make 75, you're actually making 50,000, right? So that's step one. You have to know what your real income is. Otherwise, you can't go to step two. What you have to do then is you have to prioritize, right? And I always say, there's a great term, and Dorota's going to have this all at the end. It's your needs first and your wants second. So if you just want to summarize it, it's your needs and your wants. And what does that mean? Simple. Your needs is that if you have a house or you rent an apartment, those are your needs. So you have to pay those first. And there's plenty of other needs. Your wants is secondary because it's like, oh man, I wish I had a bigger TV set. Or, you know what? I want to buy this expensive Prada pocketbook or these shoes or, a brand new, whatever, Gucci jewelry, whatever it is. I'm not even going to get into that. But, you have to kind of know what your needs are and what your wants are. And finally, what the plan is, it's kind of like budgeting and understanding just a plan for your money. Where's my money going to go? Okay, I got to put some here. I got to then save some, and then I'm going to spend some for fun. And that's the starting point. That's sort of where we're going to begin with the goal of living within your means.
I love the three P's. I'm jotting that down and I'm definitely going to put that into the show notes for everybody who's listening. We're putting together a reference page for you. So let's jump into these three P's a little bit deeper, right? So let's talk about tracking your spending. So, like, once you understand your income, and the one thing I wanted to add in there, which I'm talking to a lot of younger people who don't understand, is also healthcare costs. And I just had a 2-hour conversation with my friend who's having a baby. For those listening, I have an almost 2-year-old. So I went through this and she's like, what plan do I pick? Because this one's a lot per month, but then if not, I'm paying out of pocket. So that's a really big topic in and of itself, is understanding your paycheck and what's coming out and how paying more out of your paycheck could help you down the road later with healthcare costs, etc. But I know the next one is when you're prioritizing and your spending. Like, let's dive into that a little bit, tracking your spending and creating a budget and different types of budgets.
Yeah, well, I just want to back up a little bit because you made an excellent point about healthcare. I mean, back in the day when I started, actually healthcare was free, wherever you work.
Yeah.
It's not the case today. Great point, Dorota. But what's happening now is that money that you're using to pay for your healthcare, at least there's a benefit. It's tax deductible.
Yeah.
So when you think about, okay, I made 75 and they took 10 grand out. Well, really my salary is now going to look like 65, right? So
Right.
that's what you're going to pay the taxes on. So that's important. So you're saving, well, you're spending the money, but you're actually saving in taxes. So that's where I want to piggyback on that because that's important. Again, it's understanding your income. And Dorota, you bring that excellent point up. That's something that I'm giving you high level where everybody's paying. I mean, some people might be on their spouse's healthcare, so they don't have to incur that cost. But if you don't have that, that is a big cost, but it's also a tax benefit. I think you mentioned, I think one of your friends that they're trying to figure out their budgets, and I think some of the things now with I hate to use the buzzword AI, but there is a lot of AI apps and other types of budgeting apps. I'm not going to recommend anything. I mean, if you think of the way I do it, it's really on a Excel spreadsheet or, Google Sheets, or I just use it because I keep it simple. And sometimes when you tell people to do a budget, it could get very complicated. So make it whatever you feel the most comfortable. If you're comfortable with the technology, and I am too, then use the technology because it'll do everything for you. It'll tell you where you're spending from top to bottom, and it'll tell you where you should be saving. But if you look at the bank that you do business with every day and you go and you dig deeper into what they offer savings tools, they offer budgeting tools, they offer like automatic payment schedules. So you can automatically pay for your bills. This way you don't miss it. And then you could also automatically save. So keep in mind that the tools are right in front of you. Sometimes you're just not digging deep enough. It's sitting right like literally it's in your face, but you have to take the whatever, a minute, 2 minutes, just click, go to the top left. Usually that's where it is. You scroll down and you'll find this and you'll find what we're about to explain to you.
I love that you brought up ChatGPT. I don't know why I didn't think about this, but I want to share a quick example because I'm on my HOA board for my condo association, or I'm about to be, and they sent me the financial records. I actually uploaded them to ChatGPT, and within 3 seconds, I had a pie chart where all of our money is allocated, how much we're spending on landscaping, this and that. So, to your point, John, we have these tools at our fingertips. ChatGPT is free. You can literally take your last 3 months of your bank statements, upload it to ChatGPT, and it can tell you exactly where your spending is allocated. And ask ChatGPT, where should I save money? Where's my frivolous spending? Where should I increase, etc. Within minutes, you can have a budget. And I absolutely love that idea. I don't know why I didn't think about that because I use Chat for research every day.
Well, this is why we're great together. This is why people should tune into your podcast because healthy little moments, this is what we're trying to create. And this is the financial literacy part so that Dorota's viewers and hopefully I can educate you so that we can help you have less of a stressful life. We're going to keep repeating that because we want you to buy into this. This is really important. And it's a topic that Dorota said people were asking to hear about. It could be very simple. It could be almost like elementary, but you need to hear it from us.
It's a tool that you need to practice and remind yourself, even for myself. And I wasn't planning on sharing this, but I want to jump in with this example because it ties in everything that we've been talking about. I still have to remind myself of this too. About a month ago, my husband, John knows my husband well, we found our dream house. It is so perfect. I get excited thinking about this house. And we decided not to buy it. Why? It's on the higher end of our budget and we could have absolutely afforded it, but we came home and we sat down and we did just this. We talked about how is this going to impact our lives? How will this impact my husband's stress level? John, we literally said that. That's why I wanted to share this because right now we're growing out of our home and we do need a bigger home. But then I had to talk myself out of it, be my own financial therapist. And I said, it's not going to impact the people who come over. The people who come over my house are not going to care that my dining room isn't grand and gigantic. They just want to spend time together. And buying this house, there's an increase in bills. How is this going to not only impact our today bills, right? Because it has a pool and landscaping, it's a big property, but how does this impact our life goals? I want my husband out of his job early. That's one of our big family goals is for him to retire early. I am currently not in a 9 to 5. I have my entrepreneurial ventures. I wanted to share that, Dawn, because it is such a real life example and And it was hard, and I'm still sad about the house, but it doesn't mean that we should have moved forward. It's okay to be sad and to make sacrifices, because at the end of the day, I am so thankful to be able to stay at home with my son. We have him in all these activities, and we were able to travel when we want, some all these other goals you have to think about. And I know that was a longer example, but I thought it was just so on topic
It
to
was
everything.
perfect. It was perfect, and I give you a lot of credit for sharing that because, not many people are going to make that decision that you made. I know I would, and I've done it myself. I'm in the same house that I was in 28 years ago. We bought this place 29 years ago. It's not the same house because we did a project 8 years later that we lived here. So we, like you, we thought about moving, and instead we did construction. So it was, we saved money in that sense, and we're comfortable, and there's plenty of more much nicer houses than mine, but it's not a house anymore. It's a home.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think you did the right thing, and I could tell like you feel, even though you're sad, you feel good about what you're going to be and the benefits. Instead of getting the instant gratification, you're going to have the gratification of, and our viewers are going to love this. They're going to have the gratification that you're able to stay home, you're doing this business on your own, and you're going to spend a lot more time focusing on that and not focusing on how am I going to pay all these bills and putting
Ex-
stress on your marriage. By the way, let's talk about that. Talk about
Yes.
stress. Divorce, okay, when you look at all the reasons, one of the top reasons I think people have reported back to attorneys, 40% are because one of the spouses does not know how to handle money. First we did, let's check the box. Did you understand your paycheck? You know what your income you have and all those expenses. Now it's time to pay yourself first, right? What does that mean? Okay, pay yourself first is put some money away for savings. Okay, this is how you create a budget. The second thing is, okay, the wants and needs, right? So you have your income, you paid for your needs, and then that's part of your savings and your expenses, but then you have your wants. Well, do you absolutely need to have a want every single paycheck? No. Can you do it like and treat yourself once in a while? Yes, but make sure you're taking care of the business that we just said first. Don't just skip one part. I'm like, I'm not going to save this month, because every time you do that, you're hurting yourself, you're hurting your family, and there's other ways that if you need to really find other ways to spend money, then create that emergency fund or create a 529, which is a savings vehicle for your child's college. You can delay a big purchase, right? We talk about that all the time. Do I really need this now? Did you get a raise this year? Are you probably on the chopping block and you're going to lose your job? I mean,
Right.
nothing's guaranteed. Like you said earlier, Dorota, you said that this economy is tough. Interest rates are going to come down a little bit more. That's going to help us a little bit. Maybe that's the time to refinance. Okay, that's another thing about living within your means. Look at your bills, refinance your mortgage, refinance some loans. And I think that's going to make you save money. But what happens when I tell my friends and family to refinance, they're saving, let's just hypothetically say $500 a month, and then they go spend it and they lease a car for $700 a month. That doesn't make sense to me, because I just made you save money so that you could save and grow it later on in your life, not to just blow it. So look at that, grow it versus blow it. That's my new line.
I love, I'm gonna write that down too. And
Yes.
I want to go back and touching on the needs versus wants, because I also think a lot of people get the two confused. I
Right.
have a friend who's got a long commute, and so she's like, because I have a long commute, I need this luxury car with a $1,200 car payment. Is that really a need? Yes, you need a safe car, a
Right.
reliable car, a new car when you have a long commute. But then she's really tight in paying other bills, but that's not really a need. A car is a need to get to work, but not this luxury expensive car. And
Exactly.
a lot of people like to talk themselves into blurring the line between need and want.
Right. That's an excellent point, and I could see how that happens. I'm not going to say with my children, but they're pretty good. I think they've heard my shtick like so often, and it's nauseating to them. But I think they do understand that ultimately, when we're gone, there'll be somebody they're going to remember these words, and it's about teaching. And I think we need to, and this is what we're doing now. And I love giving back. So do you. And I think this whole teaching thing is important. again, to just go over it, look at all these needs and wants. Once a year, I'll go through all my expenses and I will call Verizon or I'll call my gas company because I have all these plans with them. And then I'll call different vendors that I use. And I'm trying to negotiate some reoccurring bills. That's the simple line. Anything that's reoccurring can be negotiated. Does it take time? Absolutely. But in the long run, if it's going to save you $1,000 a year, that's money that you could, I guess you want to buy a new car or you want to spend on a new suit, or you could put it towards that emergency fund or put it towards your own savings so that you can retire maybe earlier. These are your choices. You have to make smart choices. Like Dorota did, make a smart choice. Don't put additional stress on you. It's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. I'm sorry.
I love that you brought up the annual review because it is the end of the year. And that's why this topic is so timely. So I encourage anybody listening to sit down and look at your bills, whether you're just starting out in your career or you're close to retirement. There's so many places where we can cut and save. There's so many creative ways we can do that.
I think the other thing too is as your income changes, what's going to happen is your living within your means will change. Now you could, you just got this $25,000 raise on your $75,000 salary. We as a society here take that 25,000 and go spend it. And that's what happens. That's how Americans are. Instead, maybe take half of that, put it away, and maybe enjoy going on a nice vacation with your friends, with your spouse, with your family. Treat yourself. I'm not saying, the rest of your life you're going to have to worry about every single thing. But if you have this objective and you see that in the next 10, 20, 30 years, you have a goal in mind, then work towards that goal to sacrifice a little bit to make your life a little bit easier going forward. And stay in your marriage if you can, right? I mean, if you have a spouse, don't want to mess that up because then that's really expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. To that point, talk about finances before you get in a serious relationship. That is my biggest advice. I'm part of this Facebook group. It's called Females in Finances. Really great group. 100,000 members across the world. Women talking about finances. And the number one complaint I see in there is complaining about their spouse's financial habits and hiding debt, which is just mind blowing. Somebody in there had $600,000 due to the IRS for not paying taxes and then told his wife after the fact. I can't imagine. You need to have a very open and honest conversation about finances with your partner. And if you haven't done it yet, if you're listening, you haven't done it, do it now. You know, start now and get on the same page, short-term and long-term goals.
Well, again, talk about stress. I mean, I think the goal here is to help with our viewers with their stress. And I hope that this can tie in because look, people have social media stress, people have health stresses, people have, when you have a lot of debt, I'm sorry, that's very stressful. And we
Yeah.
do want to talk a little bit about like different types of debt, maybe if we can, or
Yeah, jump into that
okay,
next.
let's go right into that. So like, I think there's some good debt and bad debt. So the good debt is your mortgage on your house. That's because that's the largest asset that you own. So you want to be in this house, you want to take care of it. This is the number one asset that you're going to hold. Besides like if you have investments and stuff, your house is number one. So when you have a mortgage, you can always refinance it depending on where interest rates are. You have a crappy rate, let's say at a 5%, now you're going to get down to 3%. That's good. You're going to save a lot of money. And the interest on mortgages are tax deductible. So keep in mind another tax deductible type of debt, because not all debt is tax deductible. Not a personal, student loans. So you guys that are just going into the workforce, if you have a student loan, that's tax deductible. So those two that I can just think of right now are I consider okay debt. Like you can negotiate both of those. But really bad debt are credit card debt. That is the worst. It's the highest. If you have it, I'm going to tell you right now, project number one, get rid of it tomorrow if you can. Pay off your credit card debt. That's the highest rate and it's the worst. You're not getting any benefit from it. And that means you're spending more than you're earning. If you're not spending more than you're earning, then you should be paying it off every single month. That's if you take anything away from today, it's that. Pay off
Yep,
your credit card debt immediately. Okay. And
absolutely.
then car loans or leases, right? When you look at car loans and leases, well, I think this administration actually said that if you buy an American car, now that interest rate is going to be tax deductible. Don't quote me on that. That's interesting to buy more American cars. That's never happened before. So let's see if that's true or not. But most car loans, they're going to be high interest rates. So if you find a 0%, I'm okay with that. If you're leasing cars, that's a debt that's going to be with you forever because you're going to keep
Right.
leasing and leasing and leasing. I know it's a great car. My goodness, I'm spending $700, $800. That's forever.
Yeah.
You never own anything. I know owning a car basically is a depreciating asset. It's not like owning your home, which is appreciating mostly. But I think those are real quick, what's good and what's bad. And personal loans, it really depends. Like a lot of people don't get out personal loans. I think if you don't own a home, then you need a personal loan for specific reasons. If you use a personal loan for, let's say, a business thing, like right now, Dorota, you have your own business, then maybe that personal loan can be written off as let's say, a tax deduction. But I would check with your tax accountant on that. But if you are not a business owner like me and you're going to take out a personal loan, it's going to be expensive and you're going to be paying a lot. So get your debt in order. That's important and see which ones are better than others.
Absolutely. And doing all of this, we have a lot of tools at our disposal. You talked about ChatGPT already. Let's jump into maybe some of the other tools that we all have at our fingertips to help us do this and to streamline everything that we're talking about.
Good question. I think one of the things is speaking of credit cards, because I'm so anti, like if you miss a payment, it just drives me insane. If anybody does that, that's my pet peeve. So if you're going to miss payments, and I highly suggest that you start researching your credit card companies. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find a 0% interest rate for maybe 18 months, 21 months. You could possibly find something for 2 years. Take that debt from your high 30% and move it over. It might cost a fee to do that. It could be $50, $100, but it's well worth it because then you'll have those 21 months to completely wipe your debt out on your credit card. Because if you really need help, because you got yourself into a bind, instead of filing for bankruptcy, like we know people, both of us know people who talked about this that have filed for bankruptcy, that's a whole other podcast. So what I would do is I would research to refinance your credit card. Now you could do it through a zero interest rate, or if you own a home, you can get a home equity line. At least when you pay that off, I believe the interest that you're paying on your home equity line is going to be tax
Right.
deductible also, but check with your account. That's important. I think what I also use, some of the tools that I use is I have alerts on all my credit cards and my checking account and anything to do with money. There's alerts. My wife has it. I have it in case we miss it. And what does those alerts do? One of them, it tells you, wow, you just spent $1,000 on. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not my thing, and automatically stop it so you won't get charged that. But it also looks at, wait a minute, I just spent. Now it says my new balance is for. Where are we spending this money from? Right, so it keeps you in check. Same thing with your checking account. You could set a threshold. You just went below $1,000, but I had 10 grand in there. So you could have different thresholds to keep you aware so that you're not, you're going on with your life, you're going out with your friends, you're going to work, taking care of the family. And then you look on your cell phone, because I know everybody's using their cell phone, which is another important thing. You have a lot of information on your cell phone and use it. Use it as one of the best tools you can use. This way, you're not surprised a month later when you can't afford to pay your credit card. And now you're just paying 25 to 30%. Use those tools.
Because we're in that time of year at the end of the year, just to reiterate what we talked about is doing the end of year recap, whether you're using ChatGPT or a budgeting tool, and a lot of banks offer that as well. But then also, as we approach the new year, maybe doing a no spend week or month. So I know
Yes.
a lot of people in my women's group have done these like no spend January or March, or just pick a month and just start with a week, but pick one of these tools and then use it to your advantage. And I love to hear the results of these no spend weeks or months.
Right. And just to leave off with one other point here, somebody that's making $75,000, and you and I talked about this about months ago. We were talking about, like, if someone's making 75K and they're spending 70K, they're considered broke, right? And the person that's only making 50K and spends 35, they're in a much better position. And I know you're like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? I'd rather make 75. Well, then don't spend 70 because you don't make 75. You think you make 75, but you better do your homework and see what you're left with after Uncle Sam and all the other government or healthcare is sucking that money right out. And that's what you got to look at.
That's important, and that is a perfect place to pause because that wraps it up full circle to our very first point of understanding your paycheck and really knowing what you're making, what you're taking home, what you have in your bank account. And before we even wrap this up, I'm going to take another 5 minutes and I didn't tell you this, but we
Oh,
actually got a few questions that were sent in from listeners on this exact topic. So we're going to do a quick hit bonus round. I'm going to throw 3 questions at you. In full disclosure, I didn't even fully read these questions. I put them in here and into my notes. So I'm going to ask you to respond to these as you would maybe to a loved one, to one of your kids, just 1 to 3 minutes, whatever comes up for you. And again, I didn't fully read these just to keep it fun and fresh. First question, John. This is about starting the fear around starting a family. So, this question came from Emily, who's 29. She's married, thinking about starting a family. And she wrote, "We really want kids, but the cost honestly scares us. Childcare, healthcare, housing, all the kid things. It feels irresponsible to even try. How do you plan financially for kids without waiting for the perfect time that may never even come?"
ec- I have to say that that resonates with me because my mom, who is also an immigrant, and she said one time they were all talking about having children with her friends, and they said, "Oh, I don't know if I could afford it. I don't know." And this is the advice my mom says: you just have the kids because you never know if you're going to be able to have the kids if you change your mind later, and you'll figure it out. But we are in a different universe. We're not going to be able to just figure it out because it was a little easier probably back then, right? But I think
Yeah.
for us in 2025, the end of 2025, I would tell Emily, listen, you're going to have to sit down with your spouse and you're going to have to figure out everything about your needs and your wants. Do you want the big house? Do you want to sacrifice and get a starter home? Do you want to do, let's say, how's the commute going to be? Do I need another car? So you need to sit down and be honest with each other. What are some of the requirements that he may want? What are some of the requirements that she wants? And, do you have to have a live-in nanny? What is it going to cost? Do your research. Education is the number one thing before you make a decision. We've talked about this last time, and we have to talk about it again. Education is learning. If you learn what each one wants, then you're going to figure it out. And look at your salary. It's going to be tough. Right now, you're 29 years old. I'm going to be 63, full disclosure. You're not going to hopefully make the same amount of money this year. You might continue making more money as you grow into this job or switch jobs, excuse me, or have side hustles or whatever you're going to start to do. You just have to control not only what you're making, but also what you're spending. And then look, kids are going to be expensive, but you don't have to have 20 outfits a week to change. You could maybe not, maybe you sacrifice a couple things. Don't go out to dinner every like 5 times a week or figure out ways. Listen to Dorota's Healthy Little Moments. You'll learn how to save a lot of money in the other areas, but financially, you'll learn it from here. You're going to learn that, okay, it's not going to be easy, but that's one of the best sacrifices is having a child. So that's how I personally feel. And I had 3 of them. And if I had 4 or 5, I would probably still be working, and maybe take different chances so that I could figure it out a little earlier. So you starting now, I think it's a great time at 29. And I think reach out to us for a more in-depth explanation of maybe some of the things that you're confused about, but we'll be here to help.
Great answer, John. Thank you for that. Okay, let's jump to question number 2. This one is from Carlos, 34, single, working full time. I hear a lot about budgeting and living within your means, but the problem is just my means aren't enough. I'm already cutting expenses absolutely everywhere. What do you do when budgeting isn't the issue, but your income is?
Yeah, so I think what's going to have to work for Carlos is if you're not going to like switch jobs and you're not going to increase your salary and you're stuck, let's say in this situation, and when I wouldn't say stuck, but you're kind of in this situation right now, you really do have to kind of look at what are you paying for rent, and I know rents are high, or at 34, yeah, you're at that point in your life where you're not going to have a roommate, but you're going to have to figure out, is there a different place that I can live. So look at the big expenses first that you have and see if you could really dig deeper into those expenses. Because honestly, I mean, if you're making 50K and your expenses are 50K, you need to figure something out there because you're never going to be able to get out of the same rut. You either have to switch jobs and find something more or take a second job. I know people don't want to do that. Whether it's, look, the internet is very different today than it was 25. You can make money, but it's going to be hard work. So you have to balance not only what you're making and the time that you have, but also spend some of that time reviewing some of the stuff that you're spending on and how are you going to cut. There's got to be something that you're missing. And I think you need to kind of dig deeper into both expenses and income.
And just lean into maybe having a second job or bringing in additional income. Because if your income is not enough, if that is the problem that you have identified, I would say fix your income, get a second job. Sounds like he's single. So maybe he can pick up a weekend job. I have a friend who was 34. She went back to school. She needed extra money for school payments, right? So she didn't want to have too much school debt. And she started babysitting on Friday and Saturday nights. She's like, I'm not spending money going out with my friends. And it's not easy, but it's kind of easy work because once the kid goes to sleep, she would just then read or whatnot. And she was making really great money. She was babysitting for some wealthy families. And I would just encourage you to at least maybe for 6 months or a year, do something uncomfortable, like getting a second job.
Great point. Absolutely. I agree 100%.
All right. So, third and last question. You're going to love this one, John. This last one is from Megan, age 41, married with two kids, two small kids. We rely on credit cards to get through the month. We pay the minimums, but it feels like we're just stuck. Where do you even start when credit cards are your safety net? So it sounds like they're paying their bills with credit cards.
This is one that really upsets me. So
Yeah.
I know at this point at 41, you really, really should not be doing that. The only reason I would say to do it is if you can afford to do it. So for instance, I pay my healthcare because it's out of my own pocket. I use my credit card because I'm getting benefits from it. Whether you have a cash back 1 to 3%, it's benefiting me. I use those points to go on a vacation for my family because it ends up becoming free. If you're going to do that, I don't know if they own a home. I mentioned it earlier. If you do have a home, then I would look into like a line of second, what is it called? Home equity line, excuse me. Because
Yeah.
at least there you're paying whatever you're paying, and it's a lot of money. It's a lot less than the credit card debt
Yeah.
because that you will never get out of. Most people that grow this debt end up filing for bankruptcy. So you
Yeah.
don't want to do that because it's going to hurt your credit for 7 years. Okay, look at what you're spending on. You have to. We keep going to this. What are you spending on? How can you cut back? And like I mentioned earlier, look for those 0% credit cards, zero interest, and use that. Take this part of that debt and find a card. Get another part of that debt, find another card. And I know it might hurt your credit score, but you're going to pay that off in 21 to 24 months. And it's going to be 0%. That's going to help you immensely. If you're paying the minimum, you'll never finish paying that card. Never. And you'll just spend tons of money that's completely going. It's like basically you're burning your money in a fire pit. That's what you're doing. So don't do that. I recommend you don't do that. I'm being upfront and honest. Please get together, reach out to us or talk to one another and figure out with I think they have two children too. See
Yeah.
what what you're spending on the children too. If you have to cut back, cut back. See what kind of car you have. Just try to find the big ticket items and cut a little bit till you get back on your feet. But do not, I repeat, do not use your credit card as a form of, you know, debt payment. It's just not, it doesn't bode well for both of you guys.
Yeah.
And I want to see you stay married because that's going to, because I don't know you, but that's the next path, unfortunately.
That's unfortunately one of the next things that happens. So,
Ex-
John, thank you so much for this conversation. Once again, it was absolutely wonderful. It was a perfect conversation going into this new year. I'm hoping that this helps our audience manage their stress levels and sets them up for success for the next year. If you're listening, I just encourage you to start with one thing, whether that's tracking your spending, using the app, setting alerts on your credit card, trying the no spend challenge, whatever that may be for you. Just pick that one step. And John, thank you. Thank you again. You always make this conversation really straightforward and relatable. So, to everyone listening, we'll be back soon with another episode. We're already in the works on part 3 of this financial wellness series. And just check out our show notes and my blog from additional resources that we have put together to help you get started, especially if you're a visual person like me. I hope everyone has a very, very happy holiday season and a prosperous new year. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you, Dorota, and happy holidays to all. I hope this helps. I really do. Good luck.
Thank you, John.